Professor Cevet Erder, one of the leading names in the conservation of cultural assets in Turkey and in the world, was actually trained as an archaeologist. In 1964, he founded the Department of Conservation of Historic Monuments at the Middle East Technical University in Turkey. Erder was one of the founders and former presidents of ICOMOS Turkey. Erder, who was elected as the general director of ICROM twice in a row between 1981 and 88, received the Ahan Award in 1986 for the restoration of Al-Aqsa Mosque, the ICROM Award in 1997, and the Piero Gazzola Award in 2003. His book, Our Architectural Heritage from Consciousness to Conservation, which is an updated summary of his previous studies, was published by UNESCO in 1986. His work, The Venus Charter Under Review, published in 1977, is still relevant, and it is accessible through the ICOMOS website. As an experienced member of ICOMOS CIF, he was an extremely inspiring character. I can say that he almost forced me to become a member of CIF and convinced me and my colleagues to establish a national committee on education in Turkey. Professor Erder was keen on the philosophy and the terminology of conservation. He always advocated for the name of the profession to be conservation science. And he refused to use the phrase cultural heritage, because as for his point of view, heritage is property that is spent and or misused. He perceived the focus of our profession as cultural beings. And therefore, he always promoted the use of the phrase cultural assets instead of cultural heritage. The cultural assets that Professor Erder has given years to preserve for future generations are now entrusted to us. So may his soul rest in peace.
Thank you very much. And I think I will ask for a minute of silence in his memory, because I think he was a very, very important figure. So I will have to come. Okay. So I will encourage especially the young people to read his writing as well, because he has written a lot about education and training, and also to say that Nurdan Kuban is not only our very capable Secretary General, but also the President of ICOMOS Turkey. So apart from her day job of being an academic, so it's a busy person. And Paolo del Bianco, I don't know if is he connected now?
Yes.
Okay.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Simone Giometti, the Secretary General of the Romualdo del Bianco Foundation, and on behalf of the board and the foundation itself, I'm delighted to welcome all of you and thank Christina for the splendid collaboration so far realized, and I hope that you enjoyed this experience. Now, as in the program, it should be the time for our emeritus president and founder of the foundation, Mr. Paolo del Bianco, to deliver, as usual, a greeting message to all of you. Unfortunately, he has been obliged to miss that meeting. You know, so far we realized that here in Florence, thanks to an agreement with ICOMOS Paris, 13 meetings with other colleagues from other scientific committee, and he never missed it, but now has been forced to stay at home for arranging some other personal duties. But in any cases, he wouldn't miss to say you hello and welcome in spite of this unexpected situation. So he is connected by mobile phone, and he will deliver the greetings in this particular way. I hope that you enjoy and comprehend that situation. But again, in our tradition, Mr. Paolo del Bianco is to welcome all your colleagues in ICOMOS. So, Mr. Del Bianco, are you there?
Yeah.
Okay. The microphone is yours.
Okay. Sorry a lot for this problem. I am in the construction site far from Florence, and something is going wrong. So welcome to all of you at home by the ancient way. I am really happy, of course, to meet the ICOMOS International Scientific Committee for Education and Training. I express my appreciation and thanks to the President, Cristina Gonzalez Longo, and to the Vice President, Jan Anderson. They have chosen Florence and the foundation for this event. We all wish Jan a speedy recovery. I also thank them for welcoming the foundation into the CIF as an institutional member. My regards to Ingval and Maxwell, always remembering our beautiful holiday in Italy and Scotland. My greetings to Maria Teresa Yapita, who for ICOMOS has cooperated a lot with the foundation. She has always followed our activities with profound participation. And a special greeting and thanks to our honorary president, Mounir Bouchenaki, a precious and generous friend and a very special advisor. A quick note, exactly in the building of the auditorium of Como, where you are, in the 2011, I convinced the president, Gustavo Arauz, and Tito Puntaru, in the presence of vividly August Schmid, Mark Lennon, and Simone Giometti, that it was possible to candidate Italy for the ICOMOS General Assembly 2014, even though it had never happened that one nation hosted the ICOMOS General Assembly twice. My thesis was very simple. For the celebration of the 50th anniversary of the Venice Charter, the host nation had to be Italy. I subsequently informed the president of the ICOMOS Italian Committee about this my idea and about the discussion with the president and Dino and the positive view. The Italian ICOMOS Committee accepted my proposal with the foundation that assured its decisive organization, scientific for the first session, and financial support. In view of the Brunelleschi's dome and 100 meters far from it, the amphitheater of the Auditorium of Duomo is dedicated to the memory of our friend Andrzej Tomaszewski, died the 25th September 2010, 12 years ago, exactly yesterday. Tomaszewski was founder of this committee in 1984, if I'm not wrong. Thanks to him, I was introduced to the ICOM Director General Mounir Bouchenaki. That day was a very important moment for the foundation. I met Tomaszewski in Krakow during the Krakow 2000 event, but above all, we met and we have known each other the following year in Florence during the great research that we organized for the medieval town of San Gimignano with 21 universities from 17 countries on 3 continents. From the beginning, the professor appreciated our activity aimed at young university students in orienting them to the role of interpretation and enhancement of heritage, towards the dialogue among cultures and immediately supported our life beyond tourist ethos. We consider heritage as a strategy to foster dialogue among the many visitors from various countries and between them and the residents of the place. These visitors, day after day, must be helped to transform themselves from consumer tourists into dialoguing travelers. With the exercise of knowledge, mutual respect for diversity, harmony, and friendship. World heritage sites thus become centers of education and training for cultural encounters. Therefore, World Heritage Sites become promoters of peace. It means that all the people who work in the travel and hospitality sectors have to compete each other to propose their best ideas for new offers to get to know each other. A virtuous commercial competition will grow, rising the level and quality of the results. The result of the activity was an appeal published in the second edition 2019. Similar, former president of ICOMOS International Scientific Committee, Tourism, and Cevet, president of ICOMOS International Scientific Committee, Interpretation and Communication, also participated in this appeal, and I thank them for their support. Shortly, 2016 Conference World Heritage Site for Dialogue, 2017 Conference Heritage for Planet Earth. The heritage sites seen as a study center for the health of our one planet that we all share. 2018-2019 edition of the appeal, 2020 Heritage for Building Peace. We all know that educating for the planet and educating for peace means also heritage protection. I wish the CIF committee a great success. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Emeritus President. And again, I express on behalf of all the foundation our warm welcome to the committee. Bene, grazie ancora, Presidente Emerito, and I can assure that see that there are many smiling faces, and I'm really glad to and convinced that the achievement of that first meeting will be successful for everyone. Thank you again very much. And let
the telephone on.
Yes, yes. And now the floor is from the Emeritus President and founder of the foundation. I am delighted to introduce the President of our foundation, Madam Carlotta del Bianco, and she will continue the greeting message by ourselves by explaining few initiatives that are coming in the coming months, and that we would like to share with you for the reason why we both are talking and concerned about how effective the education of young generation in heritage conservation should be. Thank you very much. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much, all of you, for being in presence in Florence. I know that when we organize programs like this, so the contents and the opportunity for a meeting and putting together all the information, programs, and experiences are so important. And we are running now to achieve all the objectives. What I would like to add to what our emeritus president has delivered in his voice message is just one thing that I think is what we should focus on, regardless what kind of aspects of education we are carrying. Of course, education in architectural activities is what the focus of this conference is, but we strongly believe in the foundation network, which is composed by over 550 institutions worldwide. We are counting over 111 countries all over the world. The main aim of our foundation is to focus on the awareness of younger generation to empower their territories, their places, making available the knowledge of their past tradition, of their roots that must be preserved. And preserving traditions, histories, and knowledge is something that we all and all communities should do. And this is why it is so important for us, the meeting of today. And I must confess that it is important also because we are meeting each other after so much time. And by looking in the eyes and not only on the screens, we can even put into practice some of the ideals and the ideas that we have. Vision is one of the most important things that our younger generation need to have, especially in such a difficult and in unforeseeable moment. We need to help them to have a vision. What the foundation is doing now is with this new mandate, I represent the first president after the founder and the president who is now emeritus president, and with the board, the new board we have, and Mr. Mounir Bouchenaki is our honorary president, and so we have a big shoulder, you know, and a big experience on which to rely, but we want to put into practice what has been done for over 30 years of activities of intercultural dialogue through heritage, through education. And we still believe that culture can represent the real mean of mutual understanding and the base of common peace and of a common and shared future. That's why our practical application that I will show and I want to share. And then, of course, you are all very much welcome. And please answer to this call of being involved in our program, which is called Luoghi Parlanti, Talking Places, which is a new format to give voice to all those who live in the places and have different duties and responsibilities in places, starting from cultural institutions and public administration, citizens that can have the chance to share what are their roots. This is the way we can help to cross the big emptiness of relationship given by the pandemic of these last 2.5 years. And since we lost also intergenerational relationship, we are in the risk of losing most of the unwritten, passed by knowledge. And this is something that we have to assure for the next generation. And this is what I wanted to introduce, and then we will have time and you will have opportunity to go deeper in these contents. But Luoghi Parlanti is a program, and in the tradition of the foundation is a practice, and we always try to put into practice our vision and our objectives, and we need the help of the network and of all the institutions that from their high and different positions can help making the vision come through. This is the first publication of last year, first edition of the World in Florence Festival, the festival of the Luoghi Parlanti, of the talking places. And despite the pandemic, we achieved more than 50 places from 17 countries. This is a program that we scheduled to be happening every year until 2025, with the goal to reach 100 countries represented. And this is something that can really give the opportunity, and I give it to the committee and to the president, give the opportunity also in the universities to go transversally into the subject of studies and of the curricula in order to be aware of their places and reshape a presentation of their places in order to be attractive for culture, conservation, economics, and also travel, not tourism anymore, just travel, a travel of values that can bring knowledge and interaction in the places. So in this way, there will be more respect, less to be really conserved because of damage, and more knowledge and awareness. This is our will, this is our vision, this is our program. And we firmly trust in the collaboration of ICOMOS and of all the ICOMOS international committees and scientific committees, because up to now, we always have enjoyed a growth in the programs, thanks to the contribution of experts such as the ones I have in front of me today. So I thank you very much. We will have time in these days to share this content together and to see in practice what we can build together in the different places. So thank you very much. And I must...
And now we have, I'm delighted that Dr. Mounir Bouchenaki will be joining us from Memoriam, who is at the moment the director of the Arab Regional Center for World Heritage. And he's also a special advisor for ICROM, who was also director there. And as Carlotta has mentioned, is honorary president of the Foundation Paolo del Bianco. So I will bring him in. There it is. No.
Odetta interrompe la forse vuole parlare.
Okay. Let's close the. Una forma di. Sì, ma c'è una che puoi portare a guardare questo. Togliere il ping di noi. Devo togliere il mio ping. You are ready?
Yeah. Hello, Honorary President. Welcome.
Buongiorno, caro segretario generale.
The floor is yours.
Buongiorno a tutti. Vado a parlare in inglese perché il mio italiano è un po' povero e allora preferisco cominciare in inglese. Dear President of ICOMOS CIF, Professor Cristina González Logo, buongiorno e thank you very much for inviting me together with my dear colleagues from Del Bianco Foundation, President Emeritus and their dear friend Paolo del Bianco, President of the Foundation and dear friend Carlotta del Bianco. I hope that our dear friend Jan Andersson is listening to us despite the fact that it is midnight or something like that in the US. My dear Secretary General, dear Professor Carbonara, dear colleagues from ICROM, ICOMOS, and others, dear friends, it is a great honor for me to present a few remarks online because I cannot be with you in the beautiful city of Florence within the premises of the Foundation Del Bianco. But before we start, I think I would like to say a few words to say how sad I am to learn about the passing away of Professor Cevet Erder, former DG of ICROM, former professor at Middle East University. He was my friend. We worked together. We did a number of missions together. He was my advisor when I came to ICROM in 2006. And I am really moved by what happened to him because he was such a bright expert and such a nice man. So I want to express here at the beginning of this of your seminar my condolences for his family, for the ICROM Turkey, and all those who knew him at ICOMOS, at ICROM, and at UNESCO. I was kindly asked by my dear friend Jan Andersson to participate to the opening session of your meeting, and she wrote me the following. I am looking forward to seeing you virtually in Florence for your welcome to ICOMOS Scientific Symposium on Education, and to hear your thoughts on Russell Train's transformative idea on our globally shared heritage. And this is what I am going to say in a few words about the World Heritage Convention that is celebrated this year for its 50th anniversary. 50 years is, of course, in a human life, an age of reason and experience, which opens into a period rich of lessons and which should prepare us to consider new horizons. For a convention like the one whose 50th anniversary we are celebrating this year, since its adoption by the General Conference of UNESCO, the comparison cannot be quite equivalent, hence the interest of a retrospective look and a more detailed analysis of the evolution of this convention in the international normative world. Because there is first of all, a story. There is a story of the invention of this convention, which bore the innovative title of Convention for the Protection of World Cultural and Natural Heritage, solemnly adopted on November 16, 1972 in Paris at UNESCO headquarters. And quite naturally, it seems to me, we are going to try to have a retrospective look at the beginnings that brought this convention to the baptismal font of the United Nations educational, scientific, cultural, and social and human sciences. So let's start with the story as it was described to us by two personalities, authentic messengers from the small number of editors, and whom I had the good fortune to know well in the course of the year 1981, at the very beginning of my career at UNESCO. First of all, Michel Baptiste. He was an environmental specialist, and Gérard Bolla, an expert in the field of cultural heritage. Both were passionate because they were both taking up the challenge to ensure that this text should receive the seal of UNESCO. And they did everything to ensure that the final drafting group of the government legal experts meeting under the chairmanship of the permanent delegate of Tunisia to UNESCO can succeed. These two elements, the spirit and the scientific character, I insist, the spirit and the scientific character of the text were strongly taken up by the expert of ICOMOS in the field of cultural heritage, gathered under the leadership of late Michel Parent, Honorary Inspector General of Historic Monuments and Honorary President of ICOMOS. I also had the chance to know Michel Parent very well, having carried out with him several missions. And I remember his good nature combined with notorious professional rigor and an iron will. The same was true for the experts drafting texts relating to the protection of environment. Initially, with the contribution of late Russell Train, who was president of the Conservation Foundation in the United States, and who is considered to be one of the fathers of the convention. It was only for him in the beginning a question of natural site. According to Michel Baptiste, the idea of world heritage applied to nature was in the way a transposition of an international scale of the very notion of national park as it exists in the US. It was thanks to Russell Train that three key elements were introduced, without which today's international treaty in UNESCO phrase would be only the Red Cross of monuments. And here I quote my colleague and friend Peter Stott, who wrote about Russell Train. And he said that Russell Train introduced three very important elements. One, the concept of the list itself. Two, the dual obligation to protect both cultural and natural heritage. And three, the phrase, the wording, World Heritage. The World Heritage Trust ID was vigorously promoted by Russell Train, who was at that time the chairman of the US Council of Environmental Quality. The culmination of a unique text adopted by the General Conference of UNESCO on November 16 was truly experienced by our predecessors as a unique and historic monument. It was on 17 September 1975 that the 25th instrument of ratification of the convention was deposited by Switzerland, thus allowing this convention to enter into force 3 months later with the first meeting of the General Assembly of State Party, met on 26 November 1976 in Nairobi, Kenya, while the first session of the World Heritage Committee was held in Paris in June-July 1977, during which there were no inscriptions in this first World Heritage Committee. It was only until September 1978 session in Washington that the first inscription on the World Heritage List was proclaimed. We have to note here the strongly expressed desire for parity between cultural and natural heritage, inscribing in 78 6 cultural properties and 6 natural properties. What most characterized the 1972 convention was its resolutely innovative character. It has made it possible to combine in a single document, and for the first time in history, both the need for the protection of cultural heritage and natural heritage. It is considered as a remarkable advance in terms of the doctrinal approach not prior texts have produced. The originality of approach, which took a few years, as we have just noted, is to have highlighted the notion of outstanding universal value in an approach defining heritage as a common good, as a good common in a text of international law. The convention recognizes the interaction between human beings and nature and the fundamental need to preserve the balance between the two. It was really visionary when you think about all the recent work on the consequences of climate change. Inspired by the successes encountered by UNESCO within the framework of the program that I was in charge in UNESCO called International Campaign for the Safeguarding of Cultural Heritage, and particularly those of Abu Simbel and Philae in Egypt, and that of Venice in Italy, or even that of Borobudur in Indonesia. There, the notion of heritage that does not belong only to a given country or region, but to all of humanity is, from my point of view, the paradigm shift that has made it possible to move onto a humanist and universal vision of heritage. Another innovation which characterized the operation of the convention was the introduction into the text and the primary and eminently important advisory role of the three international organizations, two non-governmental, ICOMOS and IUCN, and one intergovernmental, ICRON. Their presence is essential. The first evaluation of the World Heritage Convention, 20 years later, conducted by Professor Léon Pressuire and published by UNESCO Publishing in 1993, reminded us that the convention, I quote Léon Pressuire, the convention from its preamble affirms that the cultural and natural heritage forms part of the inestimable and irreplaceable assets of all humanity, and that the loss following degradation or disappearance of any of these eminently precious goods constitute an impoverishment of heritage and for all the people of the world. It is proposed to ensure as best as possible the identification, protection, conservation, and adequate presentation of this irreplaceable world heritage. It's already asked the question of knowing what have been the effect of the convention on the adequate protection, conservation, and presentation of the properties inscribed on the list, and recognized that the convention is a force of encouragement and deterrent considerable by recalling two striking examples of his point of view, of the point of view of Léon Pressuire, concerning the inscription of the Medina of Tunis and that of the archaeological site of Delphi in Greece. And it already drew the attention to the shortcomings of the convention in the field of monitoring, and concluded with three practical proposals, namely the maintenance and promotion of the convention, believing that there was no need to revise it, the revision of the orientation, which should be carried out in a pragmatic spirit, and finally, the promotion of the pedagogy of the convention, which should be known and practiced at the regional level. In the same vein, it would be recognized that this convention has had a considerable effect in raising local communities' awareness of the value of their heritage and the openness to international cooperation and solidarity between countries with resources and those which have less resources. The originality of this convention has been widely mentioned in a number of books and articles devoted to its past 5 decades, and it will suffice to me to recall the remarkable work carried out by Professor Christina Cameron and our colleague Mechtil Drossler in a first publication in 2017, the World Heritage Convention at the Press University of Montreal, then a second publication, the World Heritage Convention, the Vision of the Pioneers in 2018, still at the Press Universitaire of Montreal. These publications were later supplemented by the establishment of the oral archives of the World Heritage Convention, Papyrus International Repository, University of Montreal, by interviews conducted by Christina Cameron and Mechtil Drossler with the various personalities who contributed to the implementation of this convention. Analyzing the functioning system of World Heritage between 1972 and 2000, the two authors noted that from its beginning until the year 2000, the World Heritage Convention gained in strength as it was established. Its growing popularity confirmed the interest and the need for such an international instrument for the conservation of sites of exceptional values in the world. In 2000, the number of state parties reached the impressive figure of 161 countries, representing 3/4 of the countries of the world. Through targeted policies and site-specific decisions, the World Heritage System changed the perception of heritage values and implemented successful strategic conservation action. Much of this success is due to the role of discussion forum that it played in introducing of innovative concepts in conservation policy, concepts that convention authority then helped to establish. The influence of this system on the conservation of cultural heritage is therefore undeniable. They write, the two authors, at the time of celebrating the 40th anniversary of this convention in 2012, it was clear that the initial optimism has gradually been called into question, and that these values seem to be compromised by various geopolitical considerations and armed conflict. However, the increase in the number of state parties has continued to grow to the point that in this year, 2022, the convention is ratified by 194 states. That is to say, we have reached the universality of the countries of this planet. But there are not only compliments and praises about the convention, which faces in this year 2022 an unprecedented crisis for the holding of the 45th session of the World Heritage Committee, which was to take place in Kazan in Tatarstan, in Russian Federation, and which, as a result of the conflict in Ukraine, can no longer take place in Russia. Scheduled for the period between 19 June and the 30th of June of this year, its postponement has been recorded, but there is still no scheduled date and no specific place to organize it. Already in 2020, following the rapid progression of COVID-19 pandemic, the 34th session of the World Heritage Committee, which was to be held in Fuzhou in China, was cancelled. And it is only in 2021, last year, that two joint sessions, the 43 and the 44th sessions, took place the same year by video conference over a period of 15 days. These organizational difficulties has come on top of a series of criticism expressed publicly against UNESCO and the management of the convention, and have been for a number of years, as you can read in a number of academic journals. Even the Director General of UNESCO, Irina Bokova, was appealed in this regard, and she said, the credibility of the inscription process must be absolute at all stages of the procedure, from the work of the advisory bodies to the final decision of the state parties, which hold the primary responsibility of this in this regard. Today, the criticisms are multiplying, and I am deeply worried. I think we are at a crossroads with a clear choice ahead of us. We can continue to come together year after year, like the accountants of the World Heritage Label, adding more sites to the list, adhering less and less strictly to its criteria. Or we can choose another path. We can decide to act and think like visionaries to rejuvenate the World Heritage Convention and face the challenge of the 21st century. World Heritage is not a beauty contest. World Heritage, seen as an almost universal instrument of preservation and cultural memory, and by many as a driver of development, peace, and intercultural dialogue, it may be fraught in serious need of revision. This is also the role of all the institutions, ICOMOS, IUCN, and also our very important foundation where you are hosted today, the Del Bianco Foundation, whose philosophy is to use heritage as a place of dialogue, as a place of understanding, as a place of building a peace. Following this very rapid presentation, during which I have tried to draw a parallel, both the unique and valuable contribution that the implementation of World Heritage constitutes in most countries of the planet, without neglecting elsewhere the shortcomings and the problems which affect it, and some of which risk leading to its loss of credibility. There is therefore an urgent response to be made to the problems that have been clearly identified and which undoubtedly require a drastic revision of the behavior and operating methods of all the components of the Convention: the General Assembly of Member States, the members of the World Heritage Committee, the NGO representatives, and of course, the site managers and the local communities. The training of executive and technical personnel must remain an absolute priority to ensure the preservation and enhancement of cultural heritage and natural sites. This is why your meeting, the ICOMOS CIF, is so important. The future of World Heritage Site must be strongly linked with the major challenges posed by the development of pandemics and the dramatic effects of climate change. The link with the UN development guidelines, and in particular, its 2030 agenda with the SDGs, must be the cornerstone for the survival of the sites and the well-being of the populations who live there. Finally, we must take advantage of the digital revolution to improve knowledge of sites, but also their management. Your committee is going to discuss the important issue of education for conservation and restoration of cultural heritage. In a recent workshop organized by ICROM on the theme, Learning for Innovative Approaches in Heritage Education, it was mentioned that, I quote, heritage education is important for everyone at every life stage. Educating children, as President Christina said in the beginning of her speech, about heritage from an early age is crucial to instilling appreciation and understanding of local and global culture in young inquisitive mind. For those wanting to enter the professional heritage world, there are heritage conservation and management programs at educational institutions across the world. Even heritage professionals need heritage education. ICROM and partners, UNESCO and ICOMOS, have long organized training programs to help mid-career professionals continue their lifelong learning. Grassroots organizations have developed programs for historical marginalized community to highlight and reinforce these communities, their identity, and the pride in their culture. Different application of heritage education with diverse audiences in various contexts have engendered innovative pedagogical approaches. Your meeting is going to facilitate dialogue and exchange among experts having a long experience in training and capacity building. However, as it was clearly stressed by Professor Cristina González Longo in her message to Emeritus President Paolo del Bianco, we have agreed at ICOMOS that the 1993 ICOMOS CIF guidelines for education and training in the conservation of monuments, ensemble, and sites are still relevant and the framework to continue to work on. There are, however, current practices that require to bring more attention to the need of a rigorous education and training in architectural conservation and how it should be delivered. Here I quote President Cristina, your president of this scientific ICOMOS committee. Here in Bahrain, the creation by Sheikh Hamid Al Khalifa as president of the UNESCO Category 2 Center for World Heritage in the Arab country is working exactly within these principles, the ICOMOS principle for education. And we have trained in the last 10 years, the center was created in 2012. I was the first director for the first 4 years, and we have trained up to now 1,600 young experts in 19 countries in the region. So that's why I repeat, I am sorry not to be with you because I'm sure that you know the face-to-face discussion, the exchange during lunch, during breakfast, etc., that we are used to have in the beautiful city of Florence, in the nice places of Del Bianco Hotel. I hope we can have it next month in November during the second symposium that Foundation Del Bianco is organizing and that I consider very important because it is now linking what I said about the World Heritage Convention of 1972 and its anniversary this year, its 50th anniversary, but also the other convention, which is becoming as important and as expanding in all the countries, the convention, the UNESCO Convention of 2003, concerning the safeguarding of intangible cultural heritage. And what best example of implementing the Convention of 2003 on intangible heritage by this program called Luoghi Parlanti, les lieux parlants. It is important to understand, and this was, I remember one of my professors was saying, I was, in an archaeological site. He said, you have to look at these stones because they are going to speak to you. So Luoghi Parlanti is an important program that the Foundation Paolo del Bianco is promoting, and I hope it will have the success that Carlotta del Bianco, the president, expressed in her foreword. I wish all success to your meeting. I am convinced that it will bring to all of us valuable lessons learned and rich example from your field experience. Thank you for your kind attention. Grazie mille per tutti e spero di avere la possibilità di essere con voi per la prossima volta. Grazie.
Thank you very much. And I think Dr. Bouchenaki has this unique experience of working truly international, and this is what we try to cater for, because as you know, I'm very happy we have the colleagues from Japan and other countries. We have people from South Africa, from Puerto Rico, and I really need to keep reminding ourselves that it's not one thing to roll forward. Is we really need to take, and I will be very interested to hear actually from your experience in training. You say 1,600. That's
yes.
A lot of people. I train about 7 every year, so that's for me is like a big number.
But it is for during 10 years in 19 countries. It's not done in one
place. Yeah. But I think that's the thing we need to. one purpose of this meeting is to gather this evidence, because this try to establish this state of the art that we really don't know. And Getty has done something for the modern, but it still is not that complete, because it's the problem of how you get in touch with people, and we need to create that network of evidence as well, because I think it's what we need sometimes, going around and meeting and we talk between us, but we really need to reach out everybody and try to gather this evidence and learn from all these different experiences. So we are really pleased you are here, and we would like to know more about what you're doing over there. So we will be following up with that. So thanks so much again for being with us.
With pleasure.
And I also open to the audience if you want to make any question. Him, no? If there's any other. So yes, thank you again for your talk.
Thank you very much for your kind invitation. And I see some face like Maria Teresa Iaquinta from ICROM.
Yep.
I think she was working with me during my whole mandate at ICROM. And at ICROM, we have also Joe King, who worked very closely with ICOMOS colleagues in preparing for each session of the committee the importance of training and capacity building. And as you said very rightly to your message to President Carlotta and to Paolo, it is important now to really address again the question of real training. I am against, I'm preparing a training also for Yemeni young experts, and it's not a training of 1 week or 2 weeks. It's a long-term training, and it is addressing different specialties. Conservation of heritage is not one discipline. It's composed by many disciplines, and of course, and they are going, all together in the proper restoration as a synthesis. But you need to have a good knowledge of the material, of the how they react to the environment. You have to know what is the conservation techniques. You have to understand what is the difference between brick masonry, earth masonry, stone masonry. You have to understand how is the decoration, what is the, it is a process, and my role actually as advisor, either to UNESCO or to ICROM, is to maintain the level of training at the highest level, using also the new technologies. The 3D today are helping a lot the approach to the monument and the analysis of the situation in the assessment program. So that's, I think, I'm sure you have a lot of colleagues that are going to speak about this, and we'll be really pleased to see also the outcome of the meeting, ICOMOS CIF. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Thanks again.